Good day, everyone. Today's topic is all about information technology, and the following topics will be discussed and presented by Ms. Harley Barikit, Mr. Francis Angelo Borgonia, and yours truly, Ms. Ivy Aitero. Our topics for today includes business hardware, business software, business networks and telecommunications, and lastly, the databases and the data warehouses, wherein I will be the one to discuss to you the business hardware and the software. Chapter 1, all about business hardware. So when you finish this chapter, after reading all this, you will be able to list major hardware components of computers and explain their functions. And you'll be able to classify these computers into major categories and identify their strengths and weaknesses. Also, you will be able to identify and evaluate the criteria in deciding what computers or related factors to consider upon purchasing these devices. And lastly, discuss the possible health hazards of computer use. First up is the classification of computers. So before we delve into the parts and the components of the computer, let's have a recap on the classifications of computers. We might recall that classifications of computer are categorized by size, by purpose, and by type. So by purpose, these computers have general purpose and specific purpose or the special purpose computers. And by computer type, we have the analog computers, the digital computers, and the hybrid computers. In this chapter, we will be focusing on the classifications of computer by the size. So we have the supercomputers, wherein this is the most powerful computer at any given time. They are built especially for assignments that require arithmetic speed. However, they are expensive and impractical for small businesses since they cost a lot. And compared to sizes, it is the largest one among the computers. Mainframe computers, in comparison to the supercomputers, are less powerful in terms of its computational speed, less expensive, and than the supercomputers. These computers handle business transactions and store large amounts of data in a central computer. For mid-range computers, they are smaller than mainframes and less powerful. They use a shared resource, serving hundreds of users that connect to mid-range computer from personal computers. So this type of computers are also known as systems that works in servers. Lastly, we have the microcomputers. They're collectively known as the personal computers. We have the notebook computers and the handheld computers. So what are these? So these are the computers that we are commonly using in our daily lives. We have um, the tablets, the notebooks, even we have the smartwatch. They could be computers since they also conduct functions that are specific to what the designers or the manufacturers designed them to do so. Next, the hardware components of the computer. So regardless of the size and power, all computers, especially the microcomputers, have several components to function that are more likely looking alike, or they look more similar to one another. So we have the output devices, the input devices. So we all know that these computers must have input and output devices so that it could interact with the users. We must have the storage device that might include the CD, DVD drive, the hard disk, We also have the memory that stores volatile and non-volatile memories like RAM and ROM chips. And of course, the microprocessor chip, which is also known as the central processing unit, as it is the core or the brain of the computer. Without it, the computer will not be able to interpret and to analyze the inputs of the users and cannot turn these data into information useful and display it in the output devices. Next, we have the input devices. So as I have said earlier, we need these devices so that the users could interact with the computer. We can input data through these devices. So input devices is a piece of equipment used to provide data and control signals to an information processing system such as a computer or information appliance. So as for the computer, we have the commonly we have the keyboard, the mouse, the joystick, scanners. For some printers, we have 3-in-1 printers that include scanners that can also photocopy and do printing. We have touchscreen, like touchscreen laptops or touchscreen tablets, and also we utilize stylus so that we could input our navigation in the touchscreen. We also have webcam as input um, of videos. Just like what I'm doing right now, I am recording via my webcam on my laptop. Also, to record the audio, the laptop or the computer must have a microphone so that it could capture audio that can be later on transferred or of use to the user. Joystick and trackball are other variations of a mouse. However, it is less likely to be used by common people. However, in certain types of works, trackball and joystick are most preferred by other users. Next is the output devices. So output devices is any piece of the computer hardware which converts the information into a human perceptible form or into a physical machine readable form for use with other non-computerized equipment. It can be in text, in graphic, it could be tactile, audio, or video. So the common output devices of a computer, we have the monitor, printer, speaker, headphones, projector. So these are not new to us. Monitor displays graphics, printer also displays graphics, speaker will produce audio, headphones produce audio, projector produces audio or projects no projects graphics onto a certain surface. So next, we have been talking about this hardwares of a computer. So in a business, we must make sure that we are aware of the criterias and the considering factors in purchasing computers. So professionals should consider computer power and other factors in addition to cost. So we must consider the expandability of RAM, the availability of the sockets or the expansion slots for connecting peripheral equipment, and compatibility with existing hardware and software. Furthermore, we must also look into the monitor type and resolution, especially for those people who are in the graphics art or the graphics design field, and the ergonomics for those who are using the computers for a longer period of time to avoid strain for the user, the compatibility of the parts with one another, the hardware footprint, if ever we have to um, what you dispose this item, how could we be able to effectively dispose non-usable hardware. But also the reliability of the vendor. So if ever we are gonna buy these components, we must also know well our vendor or the enterprise who are selling these components to us. We must be aware of the warranty policies, the warranty period, and how they would support us in case warranty must be availed. So also in another other considering factors, we have the power consumptions of the laptops for those who are conscious with energy consumption, and also the noise of a certain component, and lastly the cost. Why cost is last? Quality comes with a cost. So we must consider first the quality, and then if we find a certain model with the best quality, we must find the supplier who has the lowest bid of the price. Then we will make sure first the credibility and the reliability of the vendor, that they are really selling a authentic or a legit component before we automatically buy the component. And I have summarized to you the important points of the business hardware. So we'll now go on to chapter 2, which includes the business software. Stay with me because software is a little bit confusing, but if you find it, if you just listen to the flow of the discussion, you will be then guided on how software works. So after this discussion, we may be able to differentiate the application software and the system software, enumerate different generations of programming languages, and explain how they differ from one another. So another is we can explain certain roles, types, and uses of website design tools, clarify the differences between a proprietary and an open source software. So the characteristics, just like hardware, we must also have criterias in purchasing software applications for business use. Also, lastly, understand the problem of software piracy and how it affects businesses and consumers. So first of all, software. Software is non-tangible. Compared to hardware, hardware is the physical component of the computer. Software are those that can only be seen but are not tangible to human touch. So software is a series of instruction to a computer in order to execute any process such as displaying text, mathematically manipulating numbers, or deleting, cutting documents. Through this, computers understand instructions made up of electrical signals alternating between two states, You know what these two states? These are the bits. The 0, 1, they are tiny electrical circuits. Different sequences of signals represent different instructions to computer. So software is responsible for facilitating the input of the user, that organizing it, and turning this information, these inputs from the users, these are instructions on how they should process what the user has inputted into the system. Next is we have application software. So application software is under software because simple, it is a software. So it is a software that enables users to complete a particular application or task, such as word processing, investment analysis, data manipulation, or project management. While system software enables application software to run on a computer and manages the interaction between the CPU, memory, storage, input, output, and other components of the computer. So what's the difference between these two? Let's start with system software. From the word itself, system. So it connects, it links all the components in a computer. So it is the one responsible on running basic but fundamental functions of the computer. It allows communication and interaction between the CPU, the memory, and how these components should work together in order to facilitate what the user wants to do with their computer. On the other hand, application software is a type of software that is made for specific tasks, like tasks that helps humans in their activities in their lives, like analysis. We have application softwares that would help in analyzing, in help in management, in planning, in making text files. Before, we have the typewriters that do not make use of the application software, but with the use of technology, computer, and the system software, we now have the application software called word processing, wherein we type in the keyboard, and from these keyboard signals the system to type in these characters, and then word processing will now then display the letters or the words that are inputted in the keyboard. It might seem visually simple, but behind these computers, or um, deep within these computers, if we could do a nano view of what is happening, there's a lot of complex tasks happening beyond our eyes. So that's the difference of application software and the system software. Next, we have the different programming languages and software development tools. You know that writing code and software engineering are interlinked. So the process of writing programs is programming, also known as writing codes. Because when you write programs, you are more likely to write codes so that you can run a program. That's why we write a code. We have, for the languages, we have machine language that it must require a legit programmer to literally create long strings of ones and zeros to represent different characters and symbols work that is no longer required thanks to programming language and other software development. Based on what I have observed, machine language are those that um, uses the 0, 1 characters to 0, 1 strings of numbers to represent a certain type, a certain number, a certain color, a certain um, a certain dot in your monitor. So it is kind of difficult if you are not a trained programmer to debug or find what is wrong in a program when you all you can see your uh in your screen are zeros and ones. Then we have the assembly language. So assembly language, I think we have tried this programming assembly language in our programming subject. Um, these assembly languages made programming somewhat easier because they aggregated common commands into words. So we have strings of kind of words wherein these words will indicate or will call out certain functions and display or input and all sorts of programs. So higher level programming languages enable the use of English-like statements to accomplish a goal and are translated by special software into the machine language. So, mas higher language siya. They are the same um, concept with assembly language, but this time the English statements are utilized, and then these higher level programming languages uses or outsources a special software that translates it back to machine language so that it's easier once um, the programmers wants to edit or redo something in their program. So lastly, we have the software development tools are easier to use because they require practically no knowledge of programming languages to develop software. So I believe these are the tools that it's like Adalo, like they develop apps, um, they makes use of users, or the users are not required to be a programmer or a trained programmer so that they could create a software. They could simply drag around or create or interlink different elements of software development tools so that they could create a meaningful software application. So I think there's no need to further elaborate because we all have undergone Adalo. It's what we have commonly used, but I think everyone would be familiar of that. So this is the evolution of the programming language. We have the first generation that is difficult to learn and use. These have long instructions and are first used in the 1940s. Then the second generation comes with the use of assembly languages that uses the words, English words. And the third generation are the much more advanced, like they are problem oriented and are easier to learn. The fourth generation makes use of the higher level programming as what we have discussed earlier. And then the future would be we would be then able to use our natural language in coding or in writing a program, we don't need to learn the new syntax or the arrangements of the language of programming so that we could create the softwares. So here's a question, why you should be software savvy? So the advantages is of learning higher level programming is um, when we are faced with um, programming languages, it's now easier to learn and understand, and we could then be able to easily program or write codes, and then we could skip the tedious um, long strings of codes just to come up with a simple output that could be done in a shorter code. And if ever we are all now we have learned the high level programming, it's now easier for us, even those who are not um, programmers, to debug and find errors in the software. So also, if it's not too complicated and it's easier to navigate, there's ease of maintenance. We could modify easier. There's less to complications and complex um, links with one another. So the disadvantages of these higher level programs is we have less control over hardware, less efficient memory use, and programs runs more slowly. So what we have mentioned before, for the higher level programming, they have used translators. So here we have compilers and interpreters. So the two types of program language translators are compilers and interpreters. So a compiler scans the entire source code looking for errors in syntax. And if it finds an error, it does not create the object code. Instead, it generates an error message or a list of error messages. Wherein, meanwhile, interpreter checks one statement at a time, and if the first statement is free of syntactic errors, it interprets the statement into object code and makes the computer execute it. If the statement is erroneous, the interpreter issues an error message. So there's difference in the way these translators do their job in finding errors. The one has to scan the entire source code, where the interpreter has the freedom or has this feature that it only needs to check one statement or one line and see if it's free of error, then it proceeds. But if not, it then gives error. Meanwhile, in compilers, it compiles all the errors that are present. So it's kind of harder for the programmer in debugging because um, it it's hard to trace the errors because you don't know where. Okay. Next, we have the application software. So earlier we have mentioned application softwares, right? So if you could recall application softwares, they are designed for specific purposes. So programs designed to perform specific jobs such as calculating and a company's payroll. What else? Varied purposes like decision-making tools or simply creating documents, helping visuals, or other things that are general in purpose. So these I am showing to you are common application software that we could find in a computer. Most likely, they are the application software present in Microsoft. So we have the word processors. So they make text files, documents. They also makes use of inserting tables. I guess you all have used Microsoft Word, right? So spreadsheets they use. We have Excel, Microsoft Excel. It creates series of cells that we could do certain formulas in order to compile data and analyze, turn it into reports, and uh, compute these data into useful information to the user. We have the presentation tools wherein we have an example of Microsoft PowerPoint. It it makes use of it enables a user to design a presentation um, or a report, a aesthetic or a report that are according to the designs of the user. We have Microsoft Access that compiles data that used in file management and data management. So Microsoft Paint, before Adobe, we have Microsoft Paint. We start making sketches using Paint. So desktop publishing tools is the Microsoft Publisher, and the project management tools that allows you to create project management related um, materials using Microsoft Project. Last but not the least, again for the business, we have a lot of considerations upon purchasing our softwares. So first, they must fit the purpose on why we are buying this and what we are buying this for. So we try to maximize the number of needs and satisfy the demand of these. Also is the ease of learning to use. So like some application softwares are not easily learned because they are much complex compared to um, the commonly used. Just like Publisher. Microsoft Publisher is used in making pamphlets, leaflets, and other publishing type of documents or printing um, documents that are with layouts and with graphics. However, personally, I do not find um, Publisher as user-friendly or easier to use, and it's much more convenient for me to learn how to use PowerPoint in making my posters, my leaflets, or magazine covers because it's much easier to navigate and learn. Next is the compatibility with other software. So we will also consider how these application interacts with other applications. Let's go to an example using cell phones. So we have these e-wallets like PayMaya, GCash, Palawan Pay. What else are there? And many more that uses e-wallets. However, the most compatible or with other software that other softwares or other applications in our cell phones or in our gadgets makes use of primarily GCash, PayMaya, and PayPal on doing our financial transactions online. So it's better to also look into the compatibility of these softwares with your current softwares. Also, just like the hardware and software, we must also consider reputation of the vendor, the availability, and the quality of the support. So in case the software is runs kind of faces or is faced with certain um, errors or like it's lagging or there's updating that's happening that is beyond the knowledge or beyond the understanding of the users, we could easily contact them, their customer support on how we should troubleshoot these problems or these scenarios that we are facing using their software. Next is networking is maximizing the ability of many computers to share the software. Lastly, the cost. Quality first, the compatibility first, the easiness of use, and the learning process must be first put on the table before looking into the cost. Because if the item is cheaper, there's a high chance that we might be we might be losing on the maintenance, or we might be losing on the part wherein the users cannot maximize the software because they do not know how to use it. Okay, so that's it for our chapter 2 business software. So I hope you have learned a lot from what I have discussed. So our next presenter will be Miss Harley Jane Barikit. See you around.